Welcome to this week's episode of Your Stock Request for the 31st of January. Hi, I'm Michael Gable, Managing Director of Fairmont Equities. Your Stock Request is a weekly video where I take your requests and analyse the share price charts. So this week we're looking at Woolworths, Nix Carly, car sales, mineral resources and YPB. So if you have a request, please email it through. Any advice here is general only. And also make sure you do sign up to our free newsletter so you get the free tips every week. Okay, the first one is Woolworths. So this is the weekly chart. So we'll zoom in. As you can see, off the lows about 6 months ago, it's had a pretty good run, so outperforming the market. But if we just have a bit of a closer look, what you will notice is there was a bit of resistance around that sort of $30 region, which it managed to break through about a week ago. But we can see that it quickly got sold down. So a bit of a false break there. It's now come back. Volume is now picking up on the downside here. So it's a bit of a negative sign. I think what we'll see is the share price head back towards that prior low, so support just under $28.50. So Woolworths not looking too good at the moment. Nix Carly, so this is the weekly chart, had a very nice run up until early mid-2017. So it was a bit of a market darling at the time, but price action since then has been very poor. So we've had the big sell-off here. It's tried to recover and now it's just falling away. If we move to a daily chart, since the beginning of the year there hasn't really been much of a bounce in comparison to where it's come from, so that's a bit of a concern. I think what we'll need to see is a push through about $5.40, and that would be a positive. However, I think we're going to get a lot of resistance at $6, so if it pushes through here, your next target is $6. Just can't really get excited about that for the time being. Car sales, so we'll move to a weekly chart. Bit of a savage sell-off here, but since the beginning of the year there has been a fairly impressive rally. We could see a nice sort of gapping up here and closing on the weekly highs. However, volume isn't too great, especially in comparison to the volume here on the downside. So it may continue to head a little bit higher. There's going to be a lot of resistance around that sort of mid $13 region. So we're getting close to that now. And I think given the savage sell-off here, it probably needs to use up a bit more time. So not really one I'd be rushing into. Mineral resources. So on the weekly chart, we could see a very nice reversal from the lows here, which is good, and price action has stayed up, I guess, mostly within the top half of that range. But on the negative side, there's a lot of resistance at $16 and it just can't seem to get through it. So if we move to the daily chart, you can see that it just keeps getting sold off every time it gets anywhere near there. So that's a negative at the moment. It really does need to push through these levels, preferably sort of $17, and then I can get excited about the chart, and that would suggest a nice low here is in place. But unless it can push through here, I think the bias is still to the downside at the moment. And finally, we've got YPB. Obviously looks like a bit of a specky, not one I've heard of. This is a weekly chart, basically been flatlining in the last year. On the daily chart, we could see there was a bit of a move up here, but that got sold into pretty quickly, and it's just not really going anywhere. So no signs of this one heading higher, unfortunately. I'd rather have my money somewhere else, and then I can always revisit this once it gets moving, but at the moment it just doesn't look like there's any point being there. Alright, well that's it for this week. If you have a request, make sure you email it through and I'll try to cover it next week.